Hey everyone, this is Rob with Four Songs Podcast, and don't look now, I'm kind of sort of back in a routine. I got this episode up within 2 weeks of the last one, and I can't guarantee I can keep this going, but it's just good to get back in the saddle again. Now, this episode's special to me for lots of reasons. Now, I say that for every episode, and of course they all are special to me in one way or another, but this one's got a lot going on. Number one, I bring back Louis Michot of the Louisiana-based Lost Bayou Ramblers. If you recall, I spoke to Louis last September as their pandemic was raging, and we weren't really sure when live music would come back. Well, here we are almost a year, more than a year later, actually, and live music is coming back in fits and starts, but as Louis talks about, shows get canceled, rescheduled, and postponed so much, it's kind of hard to make a living still. I mean, it's getting harder and harder no matter how you look at it, but especially now, I imagine how frustrating it is to have dates moved around and really out of your control. Anyway, we talk about that. And we also talk about how Louis and his bandmates have helped work to restore services and really humanity to some parts of Louisiana that were ravaged by Hurricane Layla, a Category 4 storm that left much of Louisiana completely in the dark for weeks this past summer. That's right, weeks, including New Orleans, one of the most amazing cities in the world. Which leads me to my third point as to why this episode is so cool, is because we talk about energy and solar policy, which I kind of sort of do for a living. I don't get many chances to mix business with pleasure in this podcast, so this conversation is pretty cool for me, and I hope for you too. But most importantly, we're here to talk about Louis' quintessential pandemic musical project, the recently released EP Tiny Island, which is a live set featuring Michot's Melody Makers, one of Louis' many musical side projects. The 5-song EP was recorded literally, wait for it, on a tiny island outdoors on Louis' property. A Tiny Island was released digitally in September, but you can order a special 12-inch version on vinyl for delivery just in time for Christmas. So get those orders in now because we're not that far away from Christmas. But even better, this version of Michot's Melody Makers includes renowned cellist, singer, songwriter Layla McCullough, formerly of the Grammy-winning African-American string band the Carolina Chocolate Drops. And as Louis details, Layla McCullough adds a brand new dimension to the band, creating a unique sound that perfectly complements his fiddle and the rest of the players. I mean, when you think about it, Louisiana is such a melting pot. You get these cultures coming from all over the world, the Spanish, the Haitians, the French, the Irish, coming together, creating this incredible form of music. And you just hear it, the passion that he has for it in his voice, in his interview, and in his music. I caught up with Louis in late October while he was performing his dad duties, that is picking up and shuttling his kids around the area where he lives. There are times when our audio gets a bit rough, but it's not too bad, and there's even a time we had to switch from Zoom to a cell phone, which explains a distinct change in tone about halfway through the interview. We talk about 3 songs from Tiny Island, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce them because, as you remember, traditional Cajun music is sung entirely in Louisiana French. But remember how I said this album was recorded outdoors? What's really fascinating about it is that it is not only a slice of pandemic life, but you hear how the bugs and frogs in Louis' property chime in and actually chirp along with the band as they play. In this interview, you hear Louis' love for nature, music, and sustainability throughout. Oh yeah, and he also drops a bit of hopeful news for those of us who saw Louis and the Lost Bayou Ramblers supporting the original Pogues musicians Spider Stacy and Kat O'Riordan during their poetry tour last March. I'll let Louis deliver the news, but suffice to say, I know at least one person, Tony from the Pug, will be one happy camper. So with that, I'm Rob Thormeyer, and it is my high honor to welcome Louis Michot back to 4 Songs. Thank you, Louis, for joining me again for 4 Songs. It was an honor before, and it's even more so to have you back. So how have you been?
Man, pretty good. Luckily been playing more music than the last time we spoke, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, it was about a year ago, I think we talked, and it was after the unfortunate end of the poetry tour.
Yeah, looks like we might be up continuing the poetry tour again next March. So nothing in stone yet, but talking about it today with Spider. So
well, sign me up.
Yeah.
So before we get to Tiny Island, I also wanted to just catch up with you on Hurricane Ida, because I know you and the Ramblers did quite a bit to help the community out after immediate aftermath, and just wanted to see if you could just talk a little bit about what y'all did and just if that's still going, how people can help.
Definitely. So we actually did our first flyout gig. I'll throw a little backstory. We did our first flyout gig the very end of August, and we saw the hurricane coming our way. And it was a bit freaky because it was like I hadn't flown in 2 years, or year and a half. And then it seems like every time a hurricane is coming at us, we have travel plans. And it's always pretty stressful because, for one, will I get stuck abroad and not be able to get back to the family? For two, will it come at us? And in which case, you got to be home. We don't evacuate. I mean, I'm not like up on the coast or anything, but still, evacuating, I think, is a more newer thing. And you always want to stay with your ship, with your house and your family. We had to change all our flights around, and we ended up, flying out of Houston instead of New Orleans. But it was just a lot of that. And then we finally got to Denver, did the show, and hauled butt back. I mean, we played on the Saturday night and was home by noon on Sunday.
Wow.
So it was a quick turnaround, as it had to be. And we got back, we heard that the only person that came backstage ended up testing positive. So we all went into quarantine. I went in my little studio boat. Brian ended up having to quarantine the whole thing in the van because he couldn't get back to New Orleans.
Oh my God.
And just sitting there in quarantine, following Twitter and Instagram, trying like the hashtag Hurricane Ida to see what was happening. All of a sudden, I started seeing all these people from Laplace tweeting, "Please help! Like flood the water, the 6 feet of water in my house, and I'm on the roof, and my grandma is in the attic, and all this stuff." And I was like, "Man, I wish I could help," but of course, it was middle of the night. We're in quarantine, 2 hours away, middle of a hurricane. The next day, we decided, well, I think we're all good. Or 2 days later, we decided we're all good because no one had any symptoms. Everyone was fine. I wasn't even close to the person. So I finally just decided, after talking to a few friends in Homa and Golden Meadow that had roof damage and had leaking in their house, and one had a tree that fell through his house and couldn't get to his medicine, I finally figured I'm just going to start a quick fundraiser and go try to help these people. And I posted on Nouveau Electric Records Instagram that I was going to get a few people together and go help in 2 days. And when I woke up, that was like at 10 o'clock at night. When I woke up the next morning, there was $10,000 in my Venmo. And by 2 days later, I think we had gone over 20. We spent the whole next day just gathering supplies. We filled up the Ramblers van with supplies. Brian drove it to New Orleans to bring people water and gas and food because they lost all the electricity and everything. And then the next day went to Homa and started helping people out. It was amazing because it was just like everyone was just in the dark. There was no water, no food, no gas. Wow. Just it's so crazy how fast things can shift,
Yeah.
You think, well, okay, but then, I mean, a lot of the grocery stores had damage. The restaurants had damage. No one had power. It's just, what do you do? And we made a few trips down over the following weeks. It was amazing, the things we saw and the situations, amazingly horrible, Yeah. But amazing nevertheless, just to see the value of the basics that we take for granted every day. So, as now that we're 6 weeks past it, obviously things have slowed down in terms of the immediate needs. Like just even from week 1 to week 2 and week 2 to week 3, you could see the needs shifting from gas and water and food to trying to rip out moldy sheetrock and all that. So we did 3 big trips down and then a few smaller ones. And then I decided, after speaking with a friend of mine, Monique Verdun, who started Another Golf is Possible, and the other part about the hurricane is it really affected a lot of the indigenous communities in Southeast Louisiana that many people aren't aware of. Homa is the original name of the tribe that had been pushed down to the wetlands originally from further north. And there's a bunch of smaller bands they broke up into because they never got full recognition, including Pointe aux Chênes and Dulac and Grand Bois. These people are already on the fringe and already living on the edge with not a lot of resources to start with. So they were in dire need. And my friend Monique Verdun is part of part of the Plenoshan tribe. And we were talking the next day, and she said, if we're not getting solar and battery power to these people, all we're doing is just putting little band-aids in to come right off.
Yeah.
So with her inspiration and with something that I already believed in, I started something called the Louisiana Solar Fund. And with the intention of getting battery backup and solar to some of the houses that withstood the hurricane that are still standing, which was surprisingly a lot. For a category 4, many people say it was actually a 5, but they didn't designate it so because of different reasons. But for a category 4 to hit and there still be quite a good bit of structure still standing and still intact, that was pretty encouraging. But so many of the newer houses, or so to say, mobile homes and different types of construction, just did not make it. But the ones that did, if they had battery backup and solar panels, they would have been in such better shape and able to take care of their people. So that's the whole point of Louisiana Solar Fund. And if anyone does want to donate, it is louisianasolarfund.org. It is a 501c3 under a nonprofit I had started back in 2007 called Cultural Research Institute of Acadiana. And we've already raised enough to start. I just got my first solar generator in today. It's called New Use Energy, and it's 2,200 watts. It's the size of a Pelican case, and it comes with a fold-out solar panels, and it's enough to keep, either a high efficiency deep freezer going, or even like a window unit going overnight. If we can, we're going to be ordering more of those and getting them, so rather than trying to put like a $80,000 system on certain houses, we're going to get smaller systems that we can get to more people. It's a big operation. There's quite a few nonprofits with the same mission just since Hurricane Ida. So we're all working together to try to, get people prepared, because our grid is so vulnerable, which in turn makes people vulnerable.
Yeah.
So we're doing our best to try to think ahead for next time, because people don't want to leave. People are not just shouldn't be expected just to pick up and move because a hurricane hit.
Yeah.
I think we're all going to be experiencing these things a lot more as the years come. And, in certain cases, yes, that people will have to leave. But in most cases, it's about having appropriate technology and appropriate buildings.
Yeah, and making sure everyone benefits, not just the people in the wealthy neighborhoods.
Exactly. Yep. That is correct. Get the equipment out to people, which has been great. We've raised about 20 grand with that already. Yeah. And then also to say, after Nouveau Electric got 20 grand in the Venmo, we switched it over to Lost Bayou Ramblers. And, we used all of our social networks to do this at the same time. And the Lost Bayou Ramblers ended up getting another 20. So, and all that money went super quick. I mean, like every week we went, we would spend 10, 15 grand a day. Plus we'd be sending money to people in need and other organizations. And it was just, everyone was doing that. It was insane, the amount of mutual aid going on at the same time.
Yeah. Wow. So I can talk about this stuff for a long time. I think you could too. But we're here talking about the music, and I want to make sure you talk about Tiny Island, which is Michot's Noe Maker's latest EP, which came out digitally in September, but will be available for purchase as a 12-inch in December. So it's going to be great timing for Christmas. So,
oh yeah,
yeah. So before we get to the music itself, how did this whole idea? Because there was a video aligned with it too. How did this come together?
It's funny because the last person I had a drink with before the pandemic in New York at our last show at Poetry was Ned Sublett. And it was the first time I got to meet him, one of my favorite authors. He wrote The Music of Cuba and The World That Made New Orleans, from Spanish Silver to Congo Square, two of my favorite books. And he had asked, he does these tours and he brings people to different areas, and, he sets up bands, and I was going to help him do a crawfish boil and play some music. We were scheduling that for a few weeks from then. And of course it got canceled. So we went virtual instead. and my band Soul Creole played one of the first virtual concerts we did for him. We just filmed ourselves on the front of my little boat, my little studio boat, and that was that. And then we kept in touch, and he asked if I would do something with Michot's Melody Makers. I said, yeah, why don't we do Michot's Melody Makers with Layla? He said, that sounds great. He said, let me know how you want to do it. I said, why don't we record it? Why don't we film it at night on this little island I have? We arranged to film it at night on this little tiny island that I have in this pond on my property. It was awesome. You know, it was like Fast Friends Company, who Connor Reaver and Samuel Kelly got together and brought some real subtle lighting and their cameras and everything, and they set up, and we had it all set up around dusk, and we got everything together, made a little fire, and then Layla pulled up right in time. We proceeded to play our set, and as soon as we started playing, all the insects started chiming in, especially these little frogs. Yeah. And it's like as soon as we started playing, the frogs would start hitting these rhythms with us, and then we'd stop and they would stop. And then we'd play another song and the rhythms would change. They were completely tapping into what we were doing. Wow. And it was like, it made us laugh. You can hear us laugh on the recordings, you know? Yeah. It was a beautiful thing. So we really just did it just for Ned Sublet's post-Mambo tour, you know, just for the virtual tour. But then after watching it, like, man, this is really cool. We should release this. Just decided to get it out, because if we didn't get it out now, we might never. You know, it's really a great snapshot of the pandemic, of certain things that you would never have done in the normal world. You know, this is only something that would have happened in this special situation. So for us, it was special for a few reasons, and we wanted to put it out.
And again, so I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, so please jump in when I get them wrong. So we'll start out with Two Step de Saint Marie.
Mm-hmm.
And good. Then, so this one I'm going to La Place sont tous sur la table, which I know I butchered.
Yeah, table.
Okay. And then Blue Runner, which I can pronounce.
Yeah, Blue Runner, La Lune et Croche.
Okay. So we're going to start with Two Step de Saint Marie. Mm-hmm. And what I remember, what jumped out to me when I first started hearing this, it's very different than the version on Blood Moon, but just I remember you saying the last time we talked that y'all don't rehearse. And it just makes me wonder how you all develop that chemistry, especially when you kind of add in Layla, who is probably not with you all the time when y'all are playing. Just how do you, because there is like a sense of, what's the word? I guess chemistry, for lack of a better term, but how do you build that up? Because I just hear it in this song and throughout, but it just seems like, I know you don't rehearse, but there's a familiarity there that it's just hard to just replicate.
Yeah, I think the chemistry, first of all, is partially why certain musicians play together. You know, as far as Michot's Melody Makers with Brian and Kirkland and Mark, like when Mark played with us the first time, he had never played our tunes and never rehearsed, and he played with us on stage just sitting in, and it went so well. We're like, hey, why don't you join the band? Because we have good chemistry, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, and he doesn't even play Cajun music. You know, he comes from such a diverse background. It's still Glenn Branca and Allen Ginsberg and REM and all these bands that he worked with, but never played Cajun music. You know, chemistry is definitely the right word. Same with Layla. Like, we've played together over the years, and it's always just been pretty just natural. It's not like we have to sit there and rehearse.
And how does Layla influence that sound?
Oh, man. You know, she kind of has, I feel like with Michot's Melody Makers, we have such, you know, like the registers that we fill with Michot's Melody Makers are the high fiddle and then the low, like, samples and bass and drums. And Mark kind of floats around everywhere, that there's this perfect kind of opening for a cello to fit in, you know. And she has a great ear, and she is familiar with our music just in general, and she's an awesome musician, most importantly. And the cello really just fits in. It's like no one has to move out the way for anyone. You know, it's like there was just that hole waiting for her to fill.
So is this song an original, by the way?
was written by my Uncle Bobby and my Uncle Rick. It's about my grandma, actually, from Patterson, Louisiana, St. Mary Parish. So it's a song of that. My Uncle Rick wrote the music, and my Uncle Bobby wrote the words, and it was on the first Les Frères Michot album in 1986 called Élevé à Pilette. It's kind of fictitious. It's kind of about like a guy going to meet his girl and trying to win his girl. So it's fictitious. It's about my grandma because she's from St. Mary Parish, but it's not a true story necessarily. It's pretty cool. The lyrics they're real fast and kind of rapped in a sense. I paddled my boat. I tromped through the swamps. I battled the mosquitoes in the cane, like the Rosso cane, the water cane, where the snakes will slide from the stumps in the swamp. That's where I'm going to meet my beautiful Creole girl. It goes on. It's really, I'm getting chills talking about it. Actually, I never get to translate it to English. Yeah, it's a great little song. It's fun.
I mean, even in English, that sounds like. I know we were talking last time about how if you sung Cajun in a different language, it's not Cajun in a sense, but that's some poetry, right?
Yeah,
there.
it's full of that one.
Yeah, and what I like about it, and this is again kind of gets back to our discussion earlier about just the different influences in this kind of music, but it almost could be a bluegrass song. But there's that, you just add that, the Cajun element to it. So is that just, and this probably sounds like a dumb question, but is that just kind of the mixing of the cultures going on in Louisiana that kind of breeds this, you can hear these different types of music all in one?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought about it like that. I mean, I think that might go maybe just to the sense of the instrumentation. I don't know. I think it's just my Uncle Rick just wrote the song, so not necessarily like it's an original song, so it's not like the old traditional song. Uncle Rick just wrote the song, and my dad learned on an accordion, and Uncle Bobby wrote some lyrics. So it's just a newer Cajun song. I mean, it could be that it's influenced from, whatever they were into.
Yeah.
Which was growing up in the 60s,
Yeah. Well, I really like, we talked about this earlier about the way the bugs kind of start coming in on this one. It really is quite surreal.
Yes. Yeah,
so,
it's like frogs are almost playing a clave, you know?
Yeah. So the second song I wanted to chat about, and this one I'll just call Sur la, is it Sur la Table? Is that?
Tab, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is this a traditional song? I feel like I did some research, and the name, I'm going to get this name wrong too, like Canray Fontenot?
Yep, Canray Fontenot, that's correct.
Okay,
exactly.
cool.
He's the only one I've ever heard play the song. I mean, he's the only one that was recorded playing the song, at least, and, you know, I don't know of anyone else, but he's kind of the quintessential Creole fiddler, if you will, besides, like, Bebe Carrier and, you know, some others. But he will always be seen as, when you say Creole fiddle, you think Canray Fontenot.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a song that I actually learned playing with Louis Michot as well. My Uncle Bobby used to sing it. And it's just such a great song. You know, where can I go to find a do-nothing job? Where can I go to find the plates already on the table? Where can I go to find a wife like mine? When I'm hungry, she's hungry too. And then where can I go to find the plates already set on the table? Real simple, but real just, you know, kind of joking and playful in that way.
How did you come up with the arrangement for this?
Oh, it's just. I mean, it's to us. It's just we both know the song and we just play it. We just figure it out as we go every time, pretty much. You know, we do it a little bit different every time. Like I was kind of looking at her like, are you going to do the turn, or am I going to do the turn, or who's going to sing? We don't even have a set arrangement. Every time we play it, we just kind of take turns in different ways. You know, which is fun.
So the last song I wanted to highlight, and again, thank you for your time tonight, Louis, is Blue Runner, La Luna es, and that's es croche.
Yeah, EST is A. La Luna,
okay.
Yeah, La Luna croche, and
yeah.
Blue Runner.
Yeah, I love how this song starts. It almost seems like a bit of a duel between the fiddle and the cello.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's like one of the Creole standards, Blue Runner, that, you know, so many people play now. It's just such a great Creole song, and it kind of gets into the Willie Duriso territory with that song. yeah, Blue Runner is just a standard, but it's like such a cool song. And Layla had learned it. I play it, and I like how she plays it, so I have her start it. You know, she's like, "Why don't you start it?" No, why don't you start it? You know? And then the funny thing is, you know, Blue Runner, it kind of pulls in this quintessential rhythm that's in Creole and Cajun music. And so when I was writing La Lune Croche, which I wrote with a band from France called Le Peuple de l'Herbe, which means the people of the herb, they're kind of like a hip hop MC group from France, kind of like the Beastie Boys, or I don't know what else to compare them to. So when they sent me the first beat, I could just feel, you know, I feel like they really tapped in, and I could just feel that Blue Runner-ish feel. I mean, not that I was thinking Blue Runner, but the way that the rhythm hit, I just started playing the fiddle to it, and it has that same kind of intro to Blue Runner feel. So the two songs just went together so naturally that we just slid right into La Lune Croche. And the lyrics to La Lune Croche are some of the lyrics I'm prouder of. It's a love song to both New Orleans and to my wife, you know, because they kind of have the same things you love about them. But it's like I'm talking about New Orleans in a certain sense, but it's like inspired by my wife. So because my wife is not old like New Orleans, so I can't say it's about my wife necessarily because there's parts that don't fit. You know? Elle est vieille, elle est belle. She's old and she's beautiful. Garnished in pearl. She smells like tropical flowers. Of wood and iron, I follow behind to get a taste of her fruits. The town is crooked, but she's close. It rhymes. La ville est croche, mais elle est proche. The town is crooked because New Orleans, the whole thing about croche, it's a musical concept for us. In Cajun music, it means that the way that the music is kind of crooked and not straight. Kind of like that Blue Runner feel, you know, it's like it's straight, but it's crooked. And so New Orleans is also croche because it's crooked like the crescent. And it's bent like the moon, the crescent city.
Okay, yeah.
So that's where the imagery comes in. La ville est croche, mais elle est proche. Rooted in the city is crooked, but it's close, and it's also crooked in other ways, you know.
Rooted in DC, so
yeah, it is. Rooted in the swamp. Her sidewalks, which we call banquettes. I don't know if you know, in New Orleans they still use a French word for sidewalk, banquette. The banquettes are crooked, just like her hips. Her people are beautiful, and then it's ma belle est croche comme le Mississippi. My girl is crooked like the Mississippi. So it's a lot of imagery and just kind of an homage to New Orleans. Yeah, we just had to release it, you know, just one of those things like, well, we could have done better with this and that, and it was a little tricky with the recording and all that, but it was just like the energy was there, and so let's just release it, because if we don't, it'll never happen again, and it's just one of those things. So
yeah, well, we're glad you did. So how can people get a copy of it? Especially, they can get it on Spotify and all that, but for the 12-inch, what's the best way for folks to get that?
So it's available on NouveauElectricRecords.com, and of course that's NOUVEAU, electricrecords.com, and also our Bandcamp, which is NouveauElectricRecords.bandcamp.com. And we're doing a limited run of 12-inch vinyl, and because there's only 5 songs, we're doing it 45 RPM. So it's kind of the best, the best sonic qualities of a record, so you have it at the widest grooves on a 12-inch record. So it's going to be a special thing, and we're doing an Island at Night theme. They call it orb, where you stick a blob of one color in the middle and another color on the outside, so it makes like a kind of island in the middle of the vinyl, and the colored vinyl.
Wow. Cool. Well, so we will push folks to the website, and as we wrap up, is anything, any tour? I know you've been doing some live streaming. Is that still kind of the best way to track you guys if you can't get to New Orleans or Lafayette, that are the areas?
Yeah, we're not doing any live streaming. Thank goodness. It was nice while it lasted. It was nice. It was heated, and it was amazing that everyone pulled together to make it happen. But so nice to be able to play music live for people. We're still dealing with canceled festivals and such, but we've been busy enough playing mainly in New Orleans. So, just glad to be back performing, and been busy with the label as well. So plenty of new releases to come.
Cool. Well, we'll be looking forward to it. And thank you again so much for your time tonight, Louis.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Rob.
Well, thank you, Louis, for giving me such time and for going into such detail about what you're doing with the Louisiana Solar Fund and so much more. So remember, Nouveau Electric Records, go get that 12-inch. Go to louisianasolarfund.org, make some donations, and stay tuned because I do have more stuff coming. I don't know when I'm going to get it done, but it is going to get done before the end of the year. So, happy Thanksgiving, and talk to you all soon.